page 158 para. Althusser makes a useful distinction between what we might call state power and state control. State power is maintained by what Althusser terms repressive structures, which are institutions like the law courts, prisons, the police force, and the army, which operate in the last analysis by external force. But the power of the state is also maintained from subtly by seeming to secure the internal consent of its citizens using what Althusser calls ideological structures or state ideological apparatuses. These are such groupings as political parties, schools, the media, churches, the family, and art, including literature, which foster an ideology, a set of ideas and attitudes which is sympathetic to the aims of the state and the political status quo. Thus, each of us feels that we are freely choosing what is in fact being imposed upon us. Para. This Althusserian distinction is closely related to the notion of hegemony, which was given prominence by the Italian Marxist Antonio Gramsci, Gramsci, 1891 to 1934. Gramsci contrasts rule, which is direct political control, which uses force when necessary, and hegemony, which is, as defined by Raymond Williams, quote, the whole lived social process as practically organized by specific and dominant meanings, values, and beliefs of a kind which can be abstracted as a worldview or class outlook. Williams, Marxism and Literature, Oxford University Press, 1977, page 101. Williams relates hegemony to culture in general and to ideology in particular. Hegemony is like an internalized form of social control which makes certain views seem natural or invisible, so that they hardly seem like views at all, just the way things are. Para. The trick whereby we are made to feel that we are choosing when really we have no choice is called by Althusser interpellation, interpellation. Capitalism, says Althusser, thrives on this trick. It makes us feel like free agents, quote, you can have any color you like, ... unquote, while actually imposing things upon us, quote, ... as long as it's black, unquote. Thus, democracy makes us feel that we are choosing the kind of government we have. But in practice, the differences between political parties once in power are far fewer than the rhetorical gulfs between them. Interpellation is Althusser's term for the way the individual is encouraged to see herself or himself as an entity free and independent of social forces. It accounts for the operation of control structures not maintained by physical force, and hence for the perpetuation of a social setup, page 159, which concentrates wealth and power in the hands of the few. Para. The general purport of these Althusserian ideas is to enable a much more subtle view of how society works than that provided by traditional Marxism. Instead of force crudely applied from a single source, as from a lever, there is assent secured in many different and complex ways, and ideological power is shown to be of ultimately greater significance than material power. Thus, literature is shown to be of crucial importance in its own right, not just a helpless and passive reflector of the economic base where the real business of society goes on. Hence, the attraction of Althusser to recent Marxist critics is that he offers ways of bypassing the crude base superstructure model without giving up the Marxist perspective altogether. Althusser's views represent what we might call revisionist Marxism, which is to say that they rethink and repackage the basic concepts in a form which is more subtle and more flexible. This is not to say that Althusser was a flexible thinker generally. On the contrary, he was a particularly dogmatic one, much attacked on the left for his promotion of theory as a separate realm which is above experience, practice, or activism. See especially The Poverty of Theory by the British Marxist historian E.P. Thompson, Thompson. But he did provide terms and formulae when they were needed in the liberalizing 1960s, which loosened the monolithic fabric of Marxist thinking and therefore made it acceptable to the radicals of that period. Without these loosening moves, Marxism might have been widely rejected as just one more form of rigid traditional thinking, which the, quote, counterculture, unquote, of that time needed to reject. Para. Since the 1970s, the best-known British Marxist critic has been Terry Eagleton, whose work has reflected a wide range of influences, including for a time that of Althusser. Marxist criticism seems to conflict in its basic assumptions with those of post-structuralism and postmodernism, and the most significant Marxist writing in the 1980s and 1990s involved a process of intricate interaction with these movements. Marxist criticism has also traditionally been opposed to psychoanalytic explanations of conduct on the grounds that psychoanalysis falsely isolates individuals from the social structures in which they exist. All the same, the American Marxist critic Frederick Jameson, Jameson, in The Political Unconscious Cologne Narrative as a Socially Symbolic Act, 1981, has tried to reconcile the two. Page 160. Essentially, Jameson offers political extensions of basic psychoanalytic terms like, quote, the unconscious, unquote, and, quote, repression, unquote. Literature, in his view, often tries to repress historical truth, but analysis can reveal its underlying ideology, that is, its unconscious. A basic starting point on Eagleton, Jameson, and this whole area of debate would be to read Jameson's essay, quote, The Politics of Theory, Ideological Positions in the Postmodernism Debate, and Eagleton's Capitalism, Modernism, and Postmodernism, which are reprinted as items 22 and 23 in David Lodge's Modern Criticism and Theory, a Reader. Section Stop and Think. General, the main tenet of Marxist criticism that